There is a secret hidden inside your own body, not locked away in some distant monastery on a snow-covered mountain, not buried in a classified government file with a 7-digit clearance code, not reserved for the enlightened few who spent decades in silent retreat, surrendering everything to find it. It lives inside every breath you take, every single one, and most people walk past it every day of their lives without ever knowing it was there. What was accidentally discovered inside a restricted Harvard laboratory did not just challenge what scientists thought they knew about the human brain. It shattered it completely, quietly, without headlines, without fanfare, just researchers staring at brain scans in stunned silence, asking each other if the equipment was broken. It was not broken. What they were seeing was real. Ordinary people, no special gifts, no spiritual training, no extraordinary circumstances, were rewiring the deepest architecture of their own minds, not through years of suffering or sacrifice, not through expensive treatments or exotic rituals that only the privileged can access, through something so ancient, so primal, so devastatingly simple, that the moment you hear it, something deep inside you will whisper very quietly, "I already knew this," because you did. Your body has always known. It has been carrying this knowledge since the first breath you ever drew, waiting, patient, silent, waiting for you to stop long enough to remember. Here is what makes this extraordinary. The real reason your life feels the way it does right now, the exhaustion that does not lift, the anxiety that hums beneath everything, the sense that your best self is always just slightly out of reach, has almost nothing to do with your circumstances. It is not your job. It is not your past. It is not the economy, your relationships, your luck, or the story you were handed at birth. It has everything to do with what is happening inside your skull right now, in this moment, in the invisible electrical storms and chemical tides that decide, before you are even conscious of it, how you see the world, what you notice, what you miss, who you become. And here is the part that changes everything. That is not fixed. That is not fate. That is biology. And biology can be changed. What these scientists found on those brain scans did not just rewrite their research conclusions. It rewrote what we thought was possible for any human being willing to commit to 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. The length of a song. The time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. And in the next few minutes, everything you thought you understood about stress, potential, clarity, and the invisible ceiling you have been living beneath is about to shift. Before we go further, if something in these words is already landing somewhere real inside you, if there is even a flicker of recognition, do something simple. Like this video. It helps this message find the people who need it most. And drop a comment right now telling me where in the world you are watching this, the city, the hour, the exact minute, because I want to know who is here, who is ready, who showed up today for a reason they cannot yet fully explain. Watch this until the very end, not as a passive observer, but as someone who senses, even if only faintly, that they did not stumble onto this by accident. Because the oldest power in the human story has been quietly waiting inside you all along, and it is only ever one breath away. Every person who has ever felt stuck has felt it in their body first, not in their thoughts, not in their plans, not in the long list of things they meant to do differently this year. In their body, that low, persistent hum of tension that lives just beneath the surface of everything, that mental fog that descends at exactly the wrong moment, when clarity matters most, when the decision cannot wait, when the words need to come and they simply do not arrive. That feeling that your sharpest, clearest, most capable self is always just slightly out of reach. Like a name you almost remember. Like a dream dissolving the moment you open your eyes. You have felt this. Perhaps you are feeling it right now. And here is what no one ever told you about that feeling. It is not a personal failure. It is not evidence that you are somehow less than the people around you who seem to move through life with ease. It is not your fault, your weakness, or your destiny. It is a mismatch. You are running ancient survival software in a world that no longer resembles the environment that software was built for. Your nervous system was designed for a life of physical threats, immediate dangers, and short bursts of extreme stress, followed by long periods of genuine rest. Hunt, rest, recover, repeat. Instead, it receives emails at midnight. It absorbs news designed to provoke alarm. It navigates social pressures, financial uncertainty, and the relentless demand to perform, produce, and appear fine while doing it. There is no predator chasing you through the forest, but your body does not know that. It is still running. It has been running for years. And the cost of that invisible sprint is showing up everywhere in your life, in your focus, your relationships, your decisions, your capacity for joy. Here is what makes this the most important thing you will hear today. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It is not concrete. It is not a structure that was built once and cannot be altered. It is a living, dynamic, constantly reshaping landscape. Scientists have a word for this quality. They call it neuroplasticity. And what it means in the most practical sense possible is that the architecture of your mind is not your destiny. It is simply your history. And history can be rewritten. A team of researchers at Harvard discovered something that initially seemed impossible. A specific breathing rhythm, practiced consistently over time, begins to produce measurable, visible, structural changes in the prefrontal cortex. This is the region of the brain responsible for your clearest thinking, your wisest decisions, your ability to stay present and purposeful when everything around you is pulling you toward reaction and chaos. The part of you that knows better, the part that under stress goes quiet, this rhythm can wake it back up. The pattern itself is almost insultingly simple. 4 counts to breathe in, 4 counts to hold, 4 counts to breathe out, 4 counts of stillness, then repeat. That is it. No equipment, no cost, no prerequisite experience. Just breath, moving in a square, in a cycle, in a rhythm so old that it appears in spiritual traditions across every continent on Earth, documented long before any laboratory existed to explain why it worked. But here is where something important gets lost. Almost everyone who discovers this technique immediately reduces it to a stress management tool, something you reach for before a difficult conversation or a nerve-wracking presentation, a way to take the edge off. And yes, it works beautifully for that purpose, but that is not what it is. Using this practice only to calm down in tense moments is like owning a key to an entire building and only ever using it to open the front door. The real transformation is not in the moment of relief it creates. It is in what the practice quietly builds inside you during the hours and days and weeks when you are not thinking about it at all. Invisible architecture. New roads being constructed beneath the surface of your awareness. Roads that did not exist before. Roads that connect you more directly to clarity, to steadiness, to the version of yourself that does not get hijacked by fear or flooded by doubt. Think of your brain as a vast ancient city. Thousands of roads, intersections, alleyways, and bridges. And right now, the most important districts, the ones governing your focus, your confidence, your ability to move through challenges without losing yourself, are gridlocked. Traffic frozen in every direction. Horns sounding. Nothing moving. Everything urgent, nothing arriving. This is the inner landscape of the modern human mind, and most people spend their entire lives trying to navigate it without ever knowing they could build new roads. Here is what has stayed with me since learning all of this. The people who seem to move through life differently, the ones who appear calm without being cold, decisive without being rigid, open without being naive. They are not fundamentally different from you. Their circumstances are not dramatically better. Their problems are not significantly smaller. Their inner roads simply go somewhere different. And the question that should be sitting with you right now, the one worth carrying into the next few minutes, is this. What is happening beneath the surface of this practice that creates such a profound and measurable shift? Because the answer is not just scientific. It is something the ancient world understood long before modern instruments could confirm it. Something that lives inside your own body right now, running like a river, connecting your mind to everything that keeps you alive. And once you understand what it is, you will never think about a single breath the same way again. Deep inside your body, right now, as you sit here reading these words, there is a river running. Not a metaphor, not a poetic image. A real physical structure, stretching from the base of your skull, through your throat, past your heart, alongside your lungs, and all the way down into your gut. It is the longest nerve in the human body, the vagus nerve. In Latin, the word vagus means wanderer, and it wanders through everything that keeps you alive. It touches your heart and tells it when to slow down. It signals your digestive system when it is safe to function. It connects your brain to your lungs, your gut, your immune system, in a constant silent conversation that you have never once had to think about. But here is what almost no one knows about this wandering nerve. It is also the master switch between the two most fundamental modes of human existence. The first mode is the one most people are living in right now. Fight, flee, freeze. A state of low-level emergency that never fully turns off. Shallow breathing. A heart that beats just slightly too fast. A mind that scans every room, every conversation, every silence for signs of danger. Everything feels slightly urgent. Nothing feels completely safe. You are never fully at rest, even when you are lying still. The second mode is something rarer, something that most adults have felt only in brief, unexpected flashes. Rest, restore, create. A state where the body exhales something deeper than air, where the mind opens instead of contracts, where problems that felt overwhelming suddenly reveal the edges of a solution, where you feel for a moment completely present, completely yourself. Most people believe the difference between these two states is circumstance, that the second mode arrives when life finally cooperates, when the stress disappears, when the situation improves, when things settle down. But the researchers who studied this discovered something that changes everything. The switch between these two states is not outside you. It is not controlled by your circumstances, your finances, your relationships, or the news cycle. It is biological. It is inside you, and it can be activated deliberately with nothing more than the rhythm of your own breath. After just 7 days of consistent 4-4-4 breathing, the brain scans showed something that made the research team look twice. The connection between the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, between the rational, wise part of the brain and the emotional, reactive part, had visibly strengthened. A bridge growing stronger with each session, not metaphorically, structurally, measurably. Think about what this means for a single ordinary day in your life. You receive a message that irritates you. Right now, your emotional brain fires before you can think. The reaction comes first. The words come out wrong. The decision gets made from the wrong place. You act, and then, 3 minutes later, your rational mind arrives and quietly asks why you said that. Now imagine those two parts of you finally working together. Imagine wisdom arriving at the same moment as the emotion, not after it. Imagine responding instead of reacting. Imagine being the person in the room who stays clear when everyone else is scattered. This is not a personality type. This is not a gift some people are born with. This is a trainable biological state, and the training costs nothing. There is a woman in São Paulo who started this practice after her doctor told her that her cortisol levels were dangerously elevated. She was not sleeping. She was snapping at her children. She felt like she was watching her own life from a distance, unable to reach it. She had tried everything: medication, therapy, supplements, retreats she could not really afford. Nothing held. She started 5 minutes of 4-4-4 breathing every morning before her family woke up, sitting on the edge of her bed in the dark, not because she believed it would work, because she had nothing left to lose. By the end of the second week, her husband asked her what had changed. She did not know how to explain it. She said it felt like someone had turned down the volume on the noise inside her head, not silenced it, just turned it down enough that she could finally hear herself think. That is the vagus nerve learning a new language. That is the switch being flipped. If this is landing somewhere real inside you right now, if something in these words is touching a place that recognizes the truth of what is being said, then do something powerful right now. Go to the comments and write this sentence exactly as it appears. Write, "I command my breath to rewire my destiny." Not because it is a ritual, because the act of writing it is itself a declaration, a signal to your own nervous system that something is shifting, that you are no longer waiting for your life to change from the outside. And if you feel called, if something in you knows that you are exactly where you are supposed to be right now, click the button on your screen to subscribe to this channel. Only the chosen ones will click it. Only those who are truly ready to transform will take that one small step. Let it be a symbol of your commitment to yourself. Share this video with 3 people you love. A friend who cannot sleep, a family member who carries too much, someone who is quietly struggling and would never ask for help. This information belongs to them too, because here is what is coming next. And it is the part that most people never reach. There are 3 invisible mistakes that quietly destroy this entire process. Not dramatic errors, subtle ones. The kind that feel completely reasonable right up until the moment they undo everything you have built. And the third mistake is the most dangerous of all, because it strikes not at the beginning, when you are still motivated and curious. It strikes at the exact moment when real change is just beginning to stir beneath the surface, when you are closest to the breakthrough, when stopping feels almost logical. What happens inside the brain at that precise moment will change the way you think about every habit, every goal, and every transformation you have ever attempted. Here is the uncomfortable truth about transformation that nobody wants to say out loud. It does not feel like transformation when it is happening. It feels like nothing. It feels like repetition without reward. It feels like showing up for something that does not seem to be working day after day, in the quiet hours before the world demands your attention. And for most people, that feeling becomes a verdict. They decide the practice is not working. They decide they are the exception. They decide to stop, and they stop at exactly the wrong moment. This is not a motivational observation. This is neuroscience. The brain does not reorganize itself in a straight line. It builds silently, beneath the threshold of conscious awareness, accumulating change the way a river cuts through stone. Not with force, with consistency, with time. And then one day, something shifts. Not gradually, all at once. Like a lock that has been slowly turning, finally clicking open, but you have to still be there when it clicks. The first mistake almost everyone makes is speed. Not the dramatic, obvious kind of rushing, the subtle kind. The kind where you sit down to practice and your counting sounds like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and the entire beat takes less than 2 seconds. It feels right. It feels like breathing. But the nervous system is not listening to your intention to slow down. It is listening to what your body is actually doing. And what your body is doing at that speed is nothing more than slightly conscious, normal breathing. The parasympathetic system never fully engages. The vagus nerve receives a whisper when it needs a clear signal. Each count must be a full, unhurried second. The complete cycle takes 16 seconds. That number is not arbitrary. It is the precise biological timing at which the shift from stress response to recovery response begins to occur. Not approximately 16. 16. So ask yourself honestly, when you have tried this before, were you actually breathing that slowly? The second mistake is subtler and more damaging. It lives in the pauses. Specifically in the pause after the exhale, those 4 counts of empty stillness at the bottom of the breath. Most people grip that pause. They hold it like they are holding something that might escape. They tighten, they strain, and they endure it. And in that straining, they send their nervous system the oldest signal in the human body. The signal that says something is wrong, that the body is under threat, that it must prepare for impact. In response, the stress system quietly reactivates. The cortisol that was beginning to fall begins to rise again. The vagus nerve, which was just starting to open, closes. The entire cycle works against itself. The pause after the exhale is not meant to be held. It is meant to be released into 4 counts of empty, open, patient stillness. Not control, surrender. There is a reason the most advanced practitioners throughout history describe the exhale as the most sacred part of the breath. Not the inhale, which feels like power and arrival. The exhale, the letting go. The trust that the next breath will come without being forced. That trust is what the nervous system is waiting for. Now stop for a moment and consider this. How often in your daily life do you actually surrender to anything? How often do you stop managing, planning, anticipating, and simply allow? For most people, the answer is almost never, and the body remembers that. It has been waiting, tensed and ready, for a rest that never comes. The third mistake is the one that ends the most sincere efforts, and it does not arrive on day 1, when you are still energized by the newness of the practice. It arrives on day 3 or day 4, sometimes day 5. It arrives quietly, dressed in completely reasonable clothing. It sounds like this: I do not have time today. I am too tired for this to work properly. I will do a longer session tomorrow to make up for it. Maybe this is not the right approach for me specifically. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is the oldest protective mechanism in the human brain, activating exactly on schedule. The brain is a prediction machine. Its primary job, above all else, is to keep the current system running. Change, even positive change, reads as threat, and when the threat reaches a certain threshold, the brain begins generating exit strategies, not dramatically, gently, helpfully, with very good reasons. Recognizing this is not enough. You have to act through it anyway. By day 14, something measurable begins to happen in the brain's chemistry. The neurotransmitter responsible for sustained, effortless attention starts to increase. Cortisol, the hormone that in chronic quantities literally shrinks the volume of gray matter, begins to fall. A financial analyst in Frankfurt described it this way. He said that the problems on his desk had not changed. His portfolio was the same. His clients were the same. His workload was identical. But something in the way he was seeing them had shifted. What had looked like walls now looked like doors. What had felt urgent now felt manageable. He had not changed his life. His brain had changed how it was showing him his life. And that distinction is everything. Because by day 21, the change moves into territory that the scientists did not expect. Territory that made them go back and rewrite their conclusions from the beginning. Something happens to the part of your brain that runs in the background, the part that is active when you are not actively thinking, the part that shapes what you notice, what you miss, and ultimately what kind of reality you inhabit. What they found there will challenge everything you think you know about luck, opportunity, and why some people seem to live in a fundamentally different world than everyone else around them. There is a part of your brain that never sleeps, not when you are resting, not when you are staring out of a window, not in the quiet minutes before you fall asleep at night. It is always running, always processing, always doing something with the raw material of your inner world. Scientists call it the default mode network, and for most people alive on this planet right now, it is the most dangerous neighborhood in their entire mental landscape. Here is why. When this network is active, which is any moment you are not focused on a specific task, it does not rest. It reviews, it rehearses, it reconstructs. It takes the most painful moments from your past and replays them with perfect, merciless clarity. It builds elaborate future disasters from uncertainties that may never arrive. It argues with people who are not in the room. It generates shame about things that happened years ago. It worries about versions of tomorrow that will never exist. A global study published in the journal Science found that the human mind wanders from what it is doing approximately 47% of the time. Nearly half of every waking hour, most people are not present in their own lives. They are somewhere else entirely, and that somewhere else is almost never a pleasant destination. The researchers noted something even more striking. A wandering mind is an unhappy mind, not occasionally, consistently. The data showed that what people were doing mattered far less to their emotional state than whether their attention was actually present while doing it. Nearly half your life, spent inside a haunted house you did not choose and do not know how to leave. But here is where the story changes completely. After 21 days of consistent 4-4-4 breathing practice, the Harvard researchers saw something on the brain scans that forced them to stop and reconsider everything they thought they understood. The default mode network had not quieted down. It had not been suppressed or sedated. It had reorganized itself around a completely different function. Instead of scanning the inner world for threats, it had shifted toward what the researchers called solution-oriented processing. In practical terms, this means that the brain, in its idle moments, stopped automatically searching for what could go wrong and began automatically searching for what could go right, not because the person was trying to think positively, not because they were repeating affirmations or forcing optimism, because the underlying biological filter had been reset. To understand how profound this is, consider this fact. Every single second, your senses are sending approximately 11 million bits of information to your brain. 11 million. Every second. And your conscious mind can process roughly 50 of them. 50 bits out of 11 million. Your brain is not showing you reality. It is showing you a tiny, carefully selected version of reality, chosen based on what your nervous system has been trained to consider important. A brain trained by chronic stress filters for danger. It highlights problems, threats, and reasons for alarm. It genuinely cannot see certain opportunities because it was never told to look for them. This is not pessimism. This is biology. And this is why two people can walk into the exact same room, have the exact same conversation, and leave with completely different experiences of what just happened. One sees an obstacle, the other sees an opening. Same room, same words, radically different internal worlds. There is a teacher in Osaka, Japan, who had spent 11 years feeling invisible in her profession. She was skilled, dedicated, and completely overlooked. Promotions passed her. Recognition never came. She genuinely believed she was simply not the kind of person that opportunity found. After 30 days of consistent morning practice, something shifted that she still struggles to explain. She did not change her school. She did not change her behavior dramatically, but she began noticing things she had previously walked past every day without seeing. A conversation she would normally have avoided led to a collaboration. A small idea she would normally have dismissed led to a program that transformed her school's approach to learning. Within 8 months, she had received recognition she had spent a decade waiting for. She says now that the opportunities were always there. She simply could not see them before. This is not a coincidence. This is predictive processing, the brain's mechanism of constructing reality based on its own expectations. Change the expectations at the biological level, and the version of reality your brain presents to you changes with them. The measured results confirmed this across all participants, without exception. Working memory improved by 34%. Emotional regulation increased by 28%. Cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt quickly and respond creatively to unexpected situations, rose in every single person studied. Every single one. And then there is the layer that connects all of this to something far older than any laboratory. Because what Harvard's instruments detected in the 21st century, another group of humans had already mapped with extraordinary precision, not with technology, with thousands of years of careful, disciplined inner observation. They lived in monasteries on mountains. They wore simple robes, and they discovered something inside this breathing pattern that the modern world has only recently found the instruments to measure. What they added to the basic rhythm was not spiritual decoration. It was a precise biological modification that accelerates the entire transformation. And it is the same modification that the most elite military units on Earth independently discovered, not through meditation, but through the absolute necessity of performing under conditions where a single moment of mental chaos could cost everything. What these two worlds, ancient monasteries and modern special forces, found inside the same 4 counts of breath is what comes next. And it will change the way you use every single pause in this practice from this moment forward. There is a reason the Navy SEALs do not call this meditation. They call it a tool, a weapon even, something forged through repetition until it becomes instinct. When the world around a soldier collapses into chaos, when adrenaline floods every system and the body screams to panic, the 4-4-4 pattern is the thread that keeps the mind connected to itself. It is the difference between a person who commands the moment and a person who is consumed by it. But the monks went further than the soldiers ever did. They discovered that the pauses, those 4 counts of held stillness that most people treat as simple gaps between breaths, were not interruptions in the practice. They were the practice. The silence between the notes, as the composer Claude Debussy once said, is where the music lives. The monks understood this not as poetry, but as physiological truth. Their modification was exact. On the hold after the inhale, a gentle, deliberate engagement of the deep abdominal muscles and the base of the pelvis. Not a forced contraction. Approximately 20% of maximum capacity. Enough to create internal pressure without triggering resistance. This subtle engagement stimulates the vagus nerve with an intensity that passive stillness simply cannot reach. The signal sent to the brain is stronger, clearer, and deeper. On the hold after the exhale, the complete opposite, a total release. Every muscle in the body softens. The jaw unclenches. The shoulders drop. The hands open. You do not hold the emptiness. You allow the emptiness to hold you. This is what the philosopher Lao Tzu described more than 2,000 years ago when he wrote, "To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders." He was not speaking in metaphor. He was describing a biological state that his tradition had learned to enter deliberately. The contrast between these two qualities, engagement and dissolution, presence and release creates what researchers described as a transformation accelerant, a wave that moves through the entire nervous system, recalibrating it at a depth that the standard practice alone cannot easily reach. What normally takes 30 days begins to happen in 14. But here is the truth that all the science and all the ancient wisdom ultimately points toward. None of it matters if it stays inside this screen. The philosopher William James, widely considered the father of modern psychology, wrote something in 1890 that remains one of the most precise observations ever made about human behavior. He wrote, "The greatest revolution of our generation is the discovery that human beings, by changing the inner attitudes of their minds, can change the outer aspects of their lives." He wrote that before brain scans existed, before neuroscience had a name. He wrote it because he had observed it in himself and in the lives of every person he studied carefully. The inner attitude begins with the breath. So here is the practical plan. Not a vague suggestion, a real, specific, actionable structure for the next 30 days of your life. Every morning, within the first 90 minutes of waking, before you check your phone, before the world begins placing its demands on your attention, sit down. It does not need to be a special place. The edge of your bed is enough. A chair in a quiet corner is enough. Sit with your spine naturally upright, not rigid, just open. Place your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. Breathe in for 4 full seconds. Hold for 4 seconds with a gentle engagement of your core, soft but present. Exhale for 4 seconds, slow and complete. Hold the emptiness for 4 seconds with total muscular release, every part of you open and still. Repeat this cycle for 5 minutes. That is approximately 18 to 19 complete cycles. Set a quiet timer so that you do not need to watch the clock. Do this for 30 consecutive days, not most days and every day. The philosopher Aristotle said that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. He understood what neuroscience would later confirm. Identity is built through repetition, not intention. Keep a simple record. Each morning after your practice, write one number between 1 and 10 representing how you feel. Nothing more is required. At the end of 30 days, look at the progression. Let the data speak to you more honestly than your memory can. And when the resistance comes, because it will come, when the voice inside says today is not a good day for this, remember the words of the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, who wrote from the middle of wars and political crises and personal loss.